Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Kathy Eastwood. She is a leadership strategist and executive advisor, over 30 years as an operator across Ernst& Young, Hewlett Packard, high growth startups and private equity backed companies. So we'll discuss with her E3 leadership code, a human-centered approach to delivering consistent performance, measurable ROI, and strong cultures without burning people out. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about leadership, we'll talk about performance, and we'll talk about trust. We'll talk about all this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your background, your journey, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Great. Thanks so much. I've had an interesting career. I started my career as a CPA, or a chartered accountant, as it's often known around the world, at Ernst & Young. And it was really an opportunity to do a lot of consulting, to meet with, lots of companies at one time and see how different companies did things. Now, what I learned during that time is, even though I went into school for accounting, I wasn't an accountant. I didn't like routine. I didn't like doing the same thing. So I ended up shifting my career into a software background. And I held roles of professional services in pre-sales, helping sell the software. I ended up in a chief of staff role as an R&D organization. We had a $2.6 billion business where we were driving the R&D. And then eventually, when I left HP, I'm like, what would I love to do? If I could do anything in the world, what would I love to do? And I realized that I wanted to be a chief people officer. I wanted to really help drive change, because all of the change I had driven in my career, it was people focused. And so I said, I wanted to partner with executives that wanted to drive change, but knew people were key to their success. And that's been my passion of, how do we drive results while also investing and caring about the people? And after my stint as a chief people officer in a private equity tech company, I said, okay, loving this. This is great. How do I extend this? And how do I do this for more companies? And that's when I started the business E=Y. And that was, it's coming up to 6 years now that I've been running this business, and really helping executives drive that change by investing in their people with these human first strategies.
Absolutely, Kathy. So for a common person, viewer right now, and then later on audio and everything, what is it that you want to say, trying to say with what you are doing?
That leadership is not overly complicated. You don't need a PhD to be a good leader, but there are some basics that you have to do well over and over again. And when you do those things over and over again, that's when you have success. And that's what I help people understand. What are the basics? What does good leadership look like? And how do I show up so that I can elevate those around me, and I can help the team deliver amazing results?
Absolutely. So what is it that you know and they don't know? They are also from very nice places, great business schools, great schools, colleges everywhere from across the world, and still they don't understand the basics. I thought you move beyond the basics to the best practices. What happened to those? Tell us then, where did you learn what you learned and they did not go to or learn those things?
I think it's having gone through a lot of initiatives and ones that failed, right? Failure sometimes is the best teacher. And until you experience it firsthand, it can be difficult. And so, if you look at the executive or the leader that has a great idea, right? And they're like, "Yep, we're going to go do this." And then a year, 2 or 3 years later, that idea still hasn't come to fruition, right? Or you have another leader that is fabulous with connecting with people, but then they don't have great ideas or they don't know how to execute. So what you need to make sure as a leader is that you have a clear vision, you're engaging people the way they want to be engaged, and you have to execute. And that execution sometimes is the hardest because you have to be consistent, you have to be repeatable, you have to continuously show up. And then what I've often shared with people, and this is hard for a lot of people, is they think, okay, I'm going to execute. I'm going to follow the playbook. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to double down to make sure I get stuff done. But if you don't power all this with emotional qualities and emotional intelligence, you're going to leave people behind, and then you're not going to be able to deliver the results you actually want, because then you're just trying to pull people or push people to do something, and you're going to have limited results. So you might have a short-term win, but you're not going to have the long-term win of where people want to stay and want to be part of the solution ongoing.
Absolutely. So you talk about emotional intelligence. Do you think they have got time to learn about something so basic, so human, or is it that time is gone and only this fossilized leadership will have to go, and the new crop will perhaps be born with what is basic, what is human? How do you see that? Do you still have hope?
I
Should,
do.
should we be hopeful at all?
I'm very hopeful. Absolutely. I think we're in a time that people are recognizing it, and it's probably because the newer generation is growing up with that mindset. So as leaders that may have a few years behind them, right, it is critical that we learn it. And it is learnable. And I think a lot of people assume either you have it or you don't, but you can learn. And that's where, as I've written this book, the E3 Leadership Code, A Human Approach to High Performance, I'm really focusing on the how. Because early in my career, and especially early within E equals Y, the company, a lot of people would say, "Oh, that's good. That's great theory, Kath, but how?" And so it really focuses on, how do you be emotionally intelligent? Well, first of all, it's about being aware, self-aware of yourself, knowing yourself. So how do you do that? You have to stop and reflect. It's not difficult per se, but you have to commit to taking the time. The same thing with showing gratitude to people. You have to stop, take the time, think about it, and do it. And that's why I say leadership is not complex, but we have to keep remembering to stop and do the right things. And that is learnable. And it's creating habits. Just as you go to the gym to practice how to work out and get better, just as you go to school to learn the skills, to be a better accountant, to be a better IT engineer, whatever it is, it's habits, it's practices, and then they can be learned and they need to be practiced.
Absolutely. Self-awareness you talked about. But self-awareness is for people who are normal human beings. They are put into leadership role. What will you do when people have only gone to business schools, come on leadership roles without understanding themselves? And there they will talk about charisma, not talk about self-awareness. How do you mend those? What are the type of people that you get as clients? How do you mend those which is default by itself there is a problem?
Yeah, I think some of it is you can't fix someone that doesn't want to grow, right? And doesn't have that growth mindset. But it is, so we have a tool that we use. And one of the simplest things is asking what your values are, right? So I'll provide a list and say, here's a lot of different words. What ones stand out for you? And ask you to start to really hone in on that. And then look at why, right? Because we have to understand why we show up and how we show up. And when we do that, then we can share that with others. Because when we're in stressful situations, that's when leadership really gets tested. And we're going to show up based on our values. Our values are a lens of what we're going to do. So you have a lot of managers that are micromanagers or need to have control. There is something in their background, either their upbringing, a leader they've worked with and they've learned from. It could be a book they read that talks about it. There is a reason why they show up the way they do. And when we understand that, we can either double down on that if it's a good trait we want to use more of, or we can adjust and adapt. And so, it's helping leaders stop and go through that. So the values is one, a behavioral assessment. We use Clarity 4D. It's a way to understand where you get your energies. Are you someone that runs to the fire and, is going to take control, or are you more reflective and want the analytics? Maybe you're more outgoing and friendly and you're creative, or someone that really cares about others. As you understand who you are, that then gives you the foundation to interact and become closer with those you're working with. And that's where that emotional intelligence is. I love to run to the fire. I'll tell you what needs to be done. I got to get stuff done. But I need to partner with someone that stops, has more empathy, and can balance me so that I can then work better in an organization and help everyone move forward, not just assume they're going to adapt to my style.
Absolutely, Kathy. Absolutely. So let's understand a bit more about leaders, before we come to the E3 leadership code and also about your upcoming book. But before that, to understand, to be fair to leaders, especially the right kind of leaders, not the wrong kind, obviously, but we will also take them along. What are the challenges that leaders face today? Apart from, is AI their friend, or is it enemy? It helps them firing people without taking any accountability for their actions, non-actions, omissions, commissions. Easy job. Bots will hear them, listen to them much more better than human beings.
Yeah, AI is definitely something leaders are up against right now to figure out the what, the why, and the how, right? And it's scary, right? And I think we need to stop and really help people understand what they might be thinking and feeling and what's blocking them. So I use a term feud: fear, ego, uncertainty, and doubt. These are blockers to good leadership, right? So if you're fearful that AI is coming to take your job, if you're uncertain on how it's going to show up, if you're doubtful that it's even going to make a change, right? Or you have the ego that, nothing can replace me, you're going to struggle as a leader. And so it's important to understand what are those blockers, and also turn the table and understand what your people are fearful, what their ego is, their uncertainty and doubt. And you're really a detective as a leader, right? To understand what's happening with you, what's happening with your people, so that you can set everyone up for success and make sure that change, whether it's AI, whether it's, in the US, it's a lot of, are we going back to the office, right? And I know in India, that's a big thing as well. Like, there's some big changes. And as leaders, we have to understand what's going on in everyone's mind so that we can address those concerns, get them past it, and move forward and focus on the real goal that's at hand here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's understand, your E3 leadership code, and that's also the name of your upcoming book, E3 Leadership Code: A Human Approach to High Performance. So tell us a bit about what this code is all about, how you have discussed this in your book. Who is this book for?
This book is for anyone that wants to drive success, right? Results oriented, but also know that people are key to their success. So high performance is not an either or. Either I'm going to just drive results or I'm going to care about my people. It's not an either or, it's a both. And the E3 leadership code really looked at the successful leaders And in fact, only about 30% of individuals, teams, and organizations will meet their goals. And so the research that went into this is, what is that 30% or the E3 edge doing differently? And they're following this formula, and they're making sure they've expressed the end vision and the purpose. Where are we going and why we're going? We all crave purpose. We want to know why. So with knowing that having that clarity of where we're going is step one. Step two is communicating in the way that your stakeholders are going to understand and get on board. Because if they're not on board, you can have the best ideas, but they're not going to execute. They're not going to be productive. They're not going to go above and beyond. So you need to engage people the way they want to be engaged and speak their language. Then the third element is great ideas. Everyone's on board. Fantastic. Now you have to do the execution. You have to focus on the things over and over again, making sure you're checking in. Do we have the goals? Do we have the milestones? Are we meeting them? Are we holding people accountable? Are we going back and reviewing the results? Are there measurable KPIs, right? So you need to have this balance. And I think of it as a three-legged stool. Express, engage, execute are the legs. Now, for this stool to stay up, all the legs to stay up, you need that seat, and that's the emotional intelligence. That's the glue that holds all this together, because that helps amplify defining that vision and purpose, connecting with the people, and executing with heart to make sure that you're focusing on the right things and not trying to be just control-based. And so in this book, what I talk about is not just the what and the why, and that's a big part of it, because you need to know what you do and why you're doing it. It's also on how. So providing practical experience, worksheets, things like that. You talked about, can someone learn how to be more emotionally intelligent? Yes. And that's what this book will do. It also peppers in great stories of, seeing this code in action, not just by myself working with teams, but other folks that have seen the value and how it's changed, how they show up, how their teams show up, and how they deliver results.
Absolutely, Kathy. Absolutely. One last question I want to ask you about this is, you talked about emotional intelligence. So that thing is a problem already. You also talk about trust. How do people trust somebody who does not have emotional intelligence? Which comes first? Will trust come first and then it will build emotional intelligence? Or will emotional intelligence has to be injected into leaderships, either through injection or whatever, vaccine or whatever it is, and then the trust will come? Help us understand. It's like chicken and egg. Does it look like happening? How do you create trust? One fine morning, the leader cannot wake up and say, trust me. He or she is already a leader. They should be trusted. Even small tribes, a leader is trusted much more than leadership today. Help us understand from that point of view.
Yeah, I love that question, chicken or egg, which one comes first? I think it's a little bit of both, continuously interacting, right? So you can start with intention, right? And you can start with, I'm here to earn your trust. That's my intention. And I want you to be able to trust me. And then that's where the emotional intelligence really kicks in, because you can ask, what's going to help you trust me? What do you need? And so if you can start to ask those questions, then they go, oh, wait, maybe you're serious. This isn't just words. You're trying to engage me. But as you say something, or you say, I'm going to do this, you build that trust through execution, right? It's not just emotional qualities, but if you say you're going to deliver this report, you're going to support them with a promotion potentially, right? Whatever it is, trust is built when you keep going back and forth and delivering on what you say you're going to do. Or if you can't deliver on what you say you were going to do, come back and explain why. So always thinking about the other person's point of view. And I think it's continuous. It's like an infinitive loop where you're your intentions, following through with your actions, and coming back around. And through that, thinking about what is emotional intelligence. I need to be aware. I need to be authentic. I need to inspire, enable, show gratitude. I need to be honest and open, right? So if you constantly think about what does it mean to be emotionally intelligent and how do I connect to the hearts of my people, that's when you'll build the trust.
Absolutely. There is so much to learn about all this from you, Kathy, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, about you, learn from your book. Also, a lot of leaders will perhaps try and understand all things about leadership from you. What's the best way for them to do so?
They can follow the company at www.e=y.com. Or they can go to my personal website at kathyeastwood.com. Either way would be great. And I'm on LinkedIn. I love posting on LinkedIn and sharing tidbits there.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thanks so much.